Yes. Good morning to
Okay.
all. I'm Geeta Oberoi. As the channel name itself suggests, I plan to initiate dialogue and discussion concerning law, justice, and republic issues. To do the same, I am going to invite some remarkable persons who have fair idea on the subject taken up for discussion and who can, through their experiences, refine our understanding. Today is my first such dialogue and discussion wherein I'm focusing on use of humor, poetry, and sarcasm as well as wittiness in legal writings. And for the same, I have invited a master of wittiness himself, a very famous lawyer-cum-poet, Mr. Raju Moray, who practices law in Mumbai. For more than 30 years, he has been writing articles, poems, and books that bring smile on our face. What the cartoonist R.K. Lakshman did all these years to the readership of Times of India newspaper to bring smile on their face with just one cartoon every day reflecting on the state of affairs in the country, Raju Moray is doing to us in the legal fraternity, which is slowly waking up to this hidden gem of a talent. His writings combine satire, irony, humor, wit to weave poetic stanzas that reflect on the ongoing contemporary and historical accounts of court practices and court politics. We owe him a lot for conveying our feelings, ideas, and distress about our imperfect legal system in very concise and engaging way through humor accompanied also by visual representation. What 100 and odd pages of reports and studies on systemic faults about our legal and justice system are not able to achieve, a mere one-page poem with couple of stanzas by Raju Moray is able to do, and that too without creating any tension and feeling of despair. He has the ability to make us laugh about our painful experiences with the system. And therefore, today I'm going to ask some very important questions to him about this whole idea of weaving poetry, satire, humor, wittiness, and even sarcasm in his legal writings. I'd be asking question about the use of these literary devices and also why we all should not take a plunge to these literary devices to convey our despair. Raju sir, many thanks for agreeing to answer these questions. First of
Thank
all,
you. Thank you.
thank you so much, Raju sir. And first of all, Raju sir, I've seen that in the West, they have legal journals, especially a devoted space, a section on poems. This devoted section has led to some very interesting poems being published reflecting on how the legal system operates and how the cases are decided. At least this whole trend confirms that the poetry as an instrument of expression in legal writings is here to stay. I would like to learn from your experiences that when you started writing in this genre some 30 years back, what kind of difficulties you faced, and also whether publishing today you are more comfortable than before. Raju sir.
Uh, See, I did not face any difficulty because nobody else was doing this kind of thing before I started this.
Yes, sir.
When Indira Jaising started the Lawyers Magazine for the Lawyers Collective, somewhere in 1986, I had joined the bar in 1985, and I was working with the Lawyers Collective group to help them with the magazine. And then the thought came that there should be some humorous things in the magazine, and then they were looking out for ideas or writers who would write funny things. And I used to keep tossing ideas, and then they found it very funny. So they said, why don't you try to write this yourself? So I wrote my first piece called "Pardon Me, My Lords," which was about how we use the legal language, and how I found it very funny. So that was appreciated. And then Indira Jaising told me that you write a regular feature called Court Jester. So basically, I was very lucky because the Lawyers Collective group at that time in '86, these were not the run of the mill traditional type of conservative people. They were
Yes.
themselves a very active group, and so many of them from that chamber now are senior advocates, and they had a slight leftist orientation, no doubt. But because of that, they were very bold and very liberal, and they gave me a lot of liberties. And for me, frankly, I have never written for anybody else. I have stayed with that group. So even when the magazine, as a print magazine, closed down and they had their internet ventures over the years till the leaflet now, I have been publishing all my work with that group. So I personally never had any difficulty about getting my poems or my writings published. I did not face that difficulty. And since there was nobody else who was doing something like this, of course, later on, as people started appreciating what I'm writing, there were people who said that why don't you write for a thing with a wider reach, or many people suggested to me that. But I felt that I was very comfortable with this group, and I should stay with this. So I personally did not have any kind of difficulty in getting things published. Now, to your second part of your question, whether things have become easy or more difficult, they have become more difficult now. And
Okay.
that's not because, yeah, they have become difficult, not for me. I mean, I'm writing what I was writing,
Yeah.
but it is creating some problem for the publication. So there is now a sort of a filtration system within the publication, where whatever I write cannot just go in, be uploaded unless it is approved by some people to just see whether, this is something which will create some problem. So
Mhm.
still we are stretching those barriers. So some of the in the past couple of years,
Mhm.
uh, a few of my poems and some of my stories, I have been asked to modify. Uh, in one or two cases where it didn't make much of a difference, I also did that. But where I felt that no, I don't want to change this in any way, then it was not published over there, but I privately circulated it on WhatsApp, and I think it reached the same target audience. So it doesn't matter. Social media is very powerful now.
My next question actually flows from your answer itself, actually. This is about a poem, The Mask of Anarchy. It's a great poem by Shelley on the Peterloo massacre. The massacre involved 18 deaths and injuries to as many as 700 protesters. They paid the price for exercising their democratic rights to freedom of assembly. Shelley composed a truly impressive political poem, The Mask of Anarchy, calling out actions of two key government ministers, Sidmouth and Kasserlig, directly by their name. In this poem, Shelley also perceived magistrates as among the powerful forces of darkness because of the role of magistrates. Because the history informs that it is the local magistrates had panicked at the size of the crowd and ordered this whole assembly to disperse. And on their action direction, this whole assault had taken place. This poem, though it was composed in the year of catastrophe in 1819, but it had to wait long before its publication, and it was published only in 1832. Now, this confirms to us what you are saying, that writers and poets who have actually faced a lot of struggle when they have dared to reflect on the system, like you said about the filtration part that has been introduced. uh, I was just wondering that in this whole your journey, who all could have poets, writers influenced you in your writing to withstand the currents that were flowing from the opposite directions?
See, I'll tell you, it's not really the. Of course, there were inspirations in writing,
Yes.
both poetry as well as prose. And I have acknowledged those influences in my the first anthology, Court Jester, where I have candidly said that these are the writers who influenced me, and these are the poets who influenced me in the sense that I like them, but I did not at any stage try to copy any of them.
Yes, of
What
course.
happened was once my work started getting published and appreciated, some
Mhm.
people drew some parallels. Like some even now, some people try to draw parallels and say, "Oh," and most of the people said that your writings remind us of Ogden Nash, who
Okay.
was a American poet, and he wrote these kind of ditties, you know. He had quite a big fan following, and not very well known, but he wrote that kind of thing. And yes, to means I appreciated his work, and but I never tried to copy that.
Okay.
But I was a student of English literature, so as part of the curriculum, I did my BA in English literature. I was at that time, I mean, in the from 1976 to around 80, 81. I was with St. Xavier's College in Mumbai, which at that time was rated as one of the best colleges for liberal arts in India.
Okay.
And we had some excellent teachers of literature. And they actually were instrumental in encouraging me to give expression to whatever I was feeling. And almost every year that I was in college, in the college annual, my poems were being published either in the uh, English section or in Hindi or in Marathi or sometimes in all. So it was like I was the acknowledged poet at that time over there also, and the teachers over there. Then I did my MA in English and American literature.
Okay.
So for my MA also, we had some excellent teachers, including Nissim Ezekiel, who was himself a very good poet. So the interactions with these people, and when they found that somebody is interested in writing and all, everybody was very helpful. In St. Xavier's College, I had a professor, Eunice D'Souza. She also was a poet and an excellent teacher. She's no more now.
Okay.
But at that time, she had published her own first book, and she encouraged me a lot. Then I started, when I was in college, I also submitted some of my poems for publication to a publication of Times of India called Youth Times. There
Okay.
were two magazines targeted at, because it was not an age of mobile and social media, so print medium was the only medium. So there used to be two magazines. Actually, one was published from Calcutta. I think it was JS, it was called Junior Statesman. And the
Okay.
other one from Mumbai called Youth Times. So
Okay.
Youth Times had a section of poetry,
Mhm.
and famous poets used to select the poems. So I just submitted because one of my friends said, "Ke अरे देखो submit it there. अगर publish हो गई तो 150 रुपए मिलेंगे money order से." So I submitted and it got published. And then it was a very good feeling because, in the college, then they said they put it up on in the class notice board and appreciated it. Then to see my name in print also was a big thing. And then after a few days, by money order, I got 150 rupees for that. So I said, "अरे इसमें पैसा भी मिल सकता है." So so all that, the atmosphere in St. Xavier's College during that time, and mind you, this
Yes.
was emergency had been imposed. 2, 3 of our leftist professors were in jail, and then the emergency was lifted. And once the emergency was lifted, St. Xavier's College Hall became the focus for all these people who later on got elected on Janta Party ticket. It was a very live kind of atmosphere, and there, this kind of ability to write a sarcastic piece on the situation, political situation. But all those pieces which I wrote then and later on when I was in government law, I never wrote them under my own name. They were either anonymous, and they circulated widely, and everybody used to try to say who is the author, who is the author, and then everybody used to say yaar aur kaun aisa likh sakta hai. So they knew who was the author, but I never acknowledged that authorship because it was dangerous to do so. But later on, after I became a lawyer and I started publishing in my own name, there too, this approach was always never. See, I don't have any malice or any animus against the system, because this is the system which we have. It is
Yes.
for whatever, with its warts and all, it is there. So I'm not saying that samaj ko badal dalo and all that. That kind of ultra position in anything is not going to really lead anywhere. But at the same time, I have found that if you need to get some things done, the manner in which you make a representation to people to get that thing done makes a big difference. So if you go with a morcha and you demand something,
Yes.
then there will be, the other side will already be on the defensive mode and may not be very conducive to have a proper dialogue. But if you write a funny poem which brings a smile to their face, but at the same time they realize that he is actually pointing out something and making fun of me,
Yes.
then they the message goes home. That is important.
Yes.
In fact, let me tell you, I was very surprised that some very senior lawyers who occupy positions of power, in the sense that they have been presidents of bar associations or in all those circles, they now come to me and say that why don't you write a Adalat Antiques piece, or why don't you write a poem on this, this is the problem we are facing in the bar. So I said, okay, sir, you have the contacts with all the people who are in power. Why can't you take a delegation and tell them these problems? So they said, no, the problem is we have been making representations, we have been taking delegations, but we find that they are all reading your poems. and and that your poems are being circulated in groups of judges from subordinate judiciary to the top judiciary. So if you raise some issue, it will reach them faster and may have more effect than this. So I mean, I just kept quiet. I didn't know what to say, but to some extent I feel the reason why my poems are being appreciated is that you can finish reading them in half a minute or 1 minute.
Yes.
Secondly, they are they are in very simple language. And and thirdly, what happens is that people tend to, if you like something which is short and sweet, you
Yes.
tend to forward it to people who may like it. And
Yes.
that's how these poems have reached people. I mean, and then those people I found out and got my email ID and got back to me. So suddenly I find that people from literally from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, communicate and say that, we enjoy this and we like this. So I feel that the great revolution has been brought in because of the social media as far as my poems are concerned, because the mainstream people perhaps would not have published these type of things. I don't think some of the things which Leaflet is publishing even today,
Yes.
despite them not being like what it was, maybe 30 years ago.
Yes.
But even what they are publishing today, most of the mainstream media would not be willing to publish.
Yes.
So I feel that I was lucky in that sense that I got a group who were willing to publish my poems. Secondly, I think that because there's nobody else who's doing this kind of work, it
Yes.
got appreciated.
Yes.
Thirdly, thanks to social media, it goes viral and it's having an impact. And then
Yes.
somebody told me that, you may not understand this, but you're becoming a influencer. So I said, look, I don't know what all this is. But the thing is that if it is bringing out something, now I'll tell you, there was an
Yes.
incident where this bulldozer justice came to Maharashtra also.
Yes.
And just because some fellow, there was some shed which was coming in the way of some interested parties. So they said that, and that shed was there for more than 50 years, it seems, as per the reports. So somebody said that during the Indo-Pakistan match, I heard someone shouting Pakistan Zindabad from that shed.
Yes.
So immediately, as if on cue, crowd gathered, beat up all those people, and then the police brought a bulldozer and demolished the entire thing. Not only that person's house, but even some relatives' houses and all. It was very shocking and distressing. And of course, the usual lip service was paid by the mainstream media, but nothing happened. I wrote a poem called Bulldozer Justice,
Yes.
and it did reach the highest level of the
Yes.
judiciary,
Yes.
and I also got appreciation for that. But
Yes.
subsequently, like I also was wondering that what would be the outcome of that,
Mhm.
because it's one thing to say that it's a very good poem and thanks for bringing this to our notice, but
Yes.
so I just pushed it a little bit, and when I saw that somebody up there is appreciating this, so I gave some more details about these incidents which had come in the Wire and Indian Express.
Yes.
I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know whether there's any connection between the two, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that suo moto, the
Mhm.
Maharashtra Human
Yes.
Rights Commission now has taken cognizance and issued notices to various people. So what I feel is that just like law as a medium to bring about social change is important, I
Yes.
think creative writing,
Yes.
poetry or short stories
Humor, yeah.
are also, yeah. I think they are a very powerful medium if you can use it.
Yes.
uh, Whether other people are using it or not, I don't know. In English, I'm not aware. But there are a
Yes.
lot of people who are using it in the language, in Marathi and in Hindi also. I read both these. There,
Yes.
there, there are short stories and poems on these system and all these plots. I don't know how many of them reach uh, these people who are reading, because most of our people, whether they are the top bureaucrats or the top judges, they are still stuck on English. So they
Yes.
probably are not reading that much of the vernacular medium as
Yes.
they should be reading. Some of them do, of course. But
Yes.
if my poems and my writings are helping in bringing about some positive change, I am very happy.
True. Raju sir, in my next question is about Justice Michael Kirby's observation in his foreword to the book Judges, Judging and Humor that was published in 2018. Kirby informs us about a judge who was actually, brilliant after dinner speaker, but his jokes on gender related issues in gathering, which were actually tolerated by one set of generation in 60s and 70s, but suddenly they were considered as inappropriate for the holders of a judicial office by another set of a generation, next generation. So, this anecdote by Kirby reflects that there are changing expectation and changing audiences, even within legal profession and even within the, the like this whole device of humor. You have been writing for a very long period, almost 30 years and more than that, and you have witnessed drastic changes in these 3 decades. I'm wondering actually, uh, have you ever taken any conscious shift to reflect these changing values in a society in your works of humor?
See, conscious shift. One major change which happened, which I was not very happy about,
Okay.
but I mean my own experience. I'm telling you,
Yes.
there was a Adalat antique story which I wrote, and like all my stories is based on something which has happened.
Yes.
So this pertained to a controversial issue
Mm-hmm.
where two different division benches took different viewpoint, and
Okay.
therefore it was referred to a larger bench
Okay.
of three judges.
Okay.
Now, after the hearings concluded, the senior most judge said that I am with the petitioner. The number two judge said no, I am with the state, the
Okay.
respondent. And the junior most judge, who was a lady judge, she said, though, I will go with the senior most judge. So that is how it was. But when the judgment was reserved, the senior judge wrote a detailed judgment and everything, and because it was a majority judgment, it took a lot of trouble. And the day of pronouncement, just as they were about to go to court, So from the judges' corridor, when they were waiting to just ascend on the dais,
Yes.
the junior most judge tells the senior most judge that I've changed my mind and
Okay.
I'm going with the other person. So which left him in the lurch because he had taken a lot of trouble to write a 50, 60 page, treatise on the whole thing. And
Yes.
then suddenly found that he becomes a minority. And
Okay.
the dissenting judge's judgment of some 10, 15 pages becomes a majority judgment because the other
Okay.
one just simply said that I agree with this.
Yes.
So he was very disturbed, but there was nothing that could be done because it all happened within 5 minutes. So he felt that, so I had made a story about all this. And of course, when the story, it was the way I put it, it was, a very funny story. And I had given my usual names, which I give funny names to.
Yes.
But the editor of Leaflet said that because the junior most judge is a lady,
Mm-hmm.
and you have shown her as a lady, it
Yes.
shows that the lady has a weak mind and can easily be swayed by a male who is
Oh.
more dominating. So it is gender discrimination and it shows women in bad light. So I want you to change the gender of that person and make that person a man so that the whole bench becomes only men. So I
Okay.
said, but that I said, I've never in the story, there is nothing, even remotely about gender.
Yes.
So it's, so I said, no, if you want,
Yes.
then you change it. Otherwise, we cannot publish it. So then these were the bosses who were saying that. So the editor, the executive editor who was there, he was also well-known poet and a nice guy. So he said के अभी ये तो मतलब he says कि ये gender change operation हो गया story के अंदर तो क्या करने का. So I said, what do you think? He said, no, story is good, it should be published. I said, then फिर कर डालते हैं उसको. So then what happened is, uh, in that story, the character called Justice Gudia, who
Oh.
was a female, became Justice Goody and became became male. But what happened was when the story was published, those in Bombay High Court, my contemporaries, who are aware of the real situation,
Yes.
they were shocked. They said that how did this gender change operation happen?
Mm.
I mean, why did you do it? So I said, look, there are certain compulsions which I neither understand nor can, but I also appreciate that if that is a concern and if that is how some people are going to look at it, then that was not my intention.
Yes.
So here now what has happened is sometimes what happens is that people are very, very uh, touchy about certain issues
Mhm.
where a writer has to make a decision that do I sacrifice what I was going to say altogether, or do I make a little bit of tweaking here and there so that the basic thing gets told? But all these sort of somebody will say, "Nee, why did this happen?" Now, I have written several poems in which I have lampooned or, made fun of certain pompous lawyers, certain very senior judges, and, people know who I'm talking, but I never name them.
Yes.
Yet more or less people are aware of, because most of my poems are very topical. Like in the last 3 days I've written 3 poems on three current topics.
Yes.
So they're very topical. So the moment they are published, people know what I am talking about, whom I am talking about, and why I am talking about. All these
Yes.
things are known,
Yes.
but they are done without any malice, any rancor, so people don't mind, people laugh maybe, but some of the poems have not been cleared. In the last 2 years, my experiences, some of those poems are not cleared, which do not, which are critical of certain people who are, let us say, friendly with the group which runs the portal.
Mm.
And whereas if I make fun of somebody whom they
Yes.
also don't,
Yeah,
that is
appreciate
immediately
that.
published.
Yes.
Huh. So this kind of thing happens. But see, what I would say is that these are compulsions, because if you look at the current scenario, if you look at the kind of funding which is blocked to certain agencies, these are real concerns. How to run or how to keep a good thing going. So I don't consider these things as some major problem. But yes, as a writer, since you asked, I'm telling you that the
Yes.
freedom which I had 30
Yes.
years ago was really good. That is why I feel that my best writing is not Tales of Law and Laughter, is the Adalat Antique Stories anthology. And there may be a couple of more anthologies coming on those lines. But Court Jester, which covered my writing from say 1993 for uh, around 15-20 years after that period, that was totally, means it's real fun. And the poem which made me very famous at that time was published in 93 called Face Law. And it
Okay.
was inspired by a speech given by Justice P.B. Sawant,
Mm-hmm.
who was the Supreme Court judge, where
Yes.
he says that in our courts, face law prevails over case law in those days.
Yes.
So I like that coinage, face
Yes.
law and case law. And I wrote that poem, Case Law, Face Law, which was published in Lawyers Collective magazine. Now it is there in Court, just a book. So that created such an impact that it was something unheard of. So many people who were senior advocates, later on they became judges also. They came and told me, "Are you are a very wicked fellow." I said, "What happened?" He says, "You have put the quotation of Justice Sawant on
Yes.
top and then you have put your poem below that, and thereby you have ensured that if they want to act against you, they have to act against Justice Sawant also, which is
Yes.
never going to happen." So they said that you have, very cleverly done this, but, very good that you did it.
Yes.
So that kind of thing was there. Then I realized that one has to be, you have to, it's a tightrope. You're walking a tightrope. Today you're walking, a rope which is even, it's more dangerous, more slippery. But,
Yes.
well, God has been kind, and I and my publishers have stayed out of any kind of thing, because we don't intend. We feel that the system itself is not bad,
Yes.
but the manner in which where it has come to now is something which is undesirable. Many things are undesirable. They need a course correction,
Yes.
and if we could in some way help in that and make people laugh at the same time, it's when you're not laughing at somebody else, you suddenly realize that, array, it's you who is in the mirror. You're laughing at the mirror, and that is you who's standing in the mirror. So recently, by the way, a retired High Court judge has written a book, Yes, My Lords, It Is You in the Mirror, by Justice R.C. Chavan,
Jawan.
which
Yes.
is which is yeah, which is even, he has also changed names and all, but everybody can identify who it is about.
Okay.
So basically, my poems also, my writings also, are based on what's actually happening. It doesn't, one fine day I don't get up in the morning and invent something. It's
Yes.
there. But the
Yes.
manner in which I put it, it's
Yes.
God's gift. I would say that it comes naturally to me. There's nothing one can join some course and learn how to do this. People,
Yes.
one day, a friend of mine asked Chat GPT when it came, "Hey,
Mm.
please write a poem on this subject in Raju Moray style." And it put something together,
Mm-hmm.
and then he said, "Ki dekho, AI can write something." But I said, "What do you think about it?" So he said, "No, I mean, they have just, it's very mechanical, and usme jaan nahi hai."
Yes.
So it's like a real flower and a artificial flower which looks more real than the real,
True.
but it doesn't have that fragrance.
Yes.
So that is how it is.
I was also wondering because you are writing these cheeky incidents that took place inside and outside the courtroom. Has it ever happened to you that morning you have written about, of course, in your anonymous scripted incident about somebody, and in the evening you have bumped into the same person in some function? Everyone would be very interested that did you, had to wriggle out of the situation like that anywhere?
No, whenever somebody I've written about
Yes.
has bumped into me,
Yes.
uh, there has been a studied silence or a
Okay.
knowing smile, but nothing beyond that. But
Okay.
one thing which happened recently was very funny. There was this judge who is now retired, but
Okay.
who was like known as a terror, and he would people were scared. And
Okay.
one day I wrote a story which was based on his behavior and things like that.
Okay.
So I met a lawyer who said that the day your story came, we
Hmm.
had three matters before that judge,
Okay.
and he says our senior called us and told all the three juniors who were attending those three matters, please somehow take an adjournment today because he's going to be in such a foul mood
Oh.
because of what has come,
Okay.
that best is to let him cool down. So they went and just got the matters adjourned.
Okay.
So this is the kind of perception which was there that somebody would. But let me tell you,
Yes.
it depends upon what kind of person is that person you're in.
Yes.
If
Yes.
he's a sport, if he is a sport,
Yes.
and if he takes it in the right spirit,
Correct.
then, because there is a saying, na, nindak niyare rakhiye. You
Yes.
should have a critic nearby, provided it is constructive criticism.
Yes.
See, it should not be malicious or destructive. So
Yes.
if you have somebody who